The photograph is crooked. I notice it every morning when I walk past the hallway wall on my way to the kitchen. A framed 5x7 that I printed myself. Slid into a frame I bought at Target and hung with a single nail I hammered in at midnight while everyone was asleep. It shows my son and me at the beach the summer before everything fell apart. His hair is wet. His smile is the kind that uses his whole face. He is 8 years old in that photo, and he has no idea yet what the people in my husband's family think of him. I straighten it every single morning. Every single morning it needs straightening. That photograph is the only one of my son in this entire house where he is not standing slightly apart from everyone else. My son's name is Caleb. He will be 11 in March. He has my eyes and his father's laugh, his biological father, a man who left before Caleb could walk, a man whose name I do not say in this house because it has never once brought anything good into a room. Caleb does not remember him. What Caleb remembers is the apartment we shared for 3 years, just the two of us, where I taught him to read using library books spread across the living room floor, where we ate cereal for dinner on the nights I was too tired to cook, where he learned to fall asleep to the sound of me typing work emails at 11 p.m. He remembers that. He is proud of that, actually. He told his teacher once that his mom worked really hard to give him a good life. His teacher told me at pickup, and I cried in my car for 10 minutes before I could drive. I met my husband at a work event when Caleb was 4. He was the kind of man who, on our second date, asked me to show him pictures of my son, not out of politeness, out of genuine curiosity. He leaned across the table and swiped through my camera roll slowly, asking questions. What is he into? What makes him laugh? Is he shy, or does he talk to everyone? By our 5th date, he had memorized Caleb's favorite dinosaur. By our 8th, he was asking when he could meet him. The first time my husband came over for dinner, Caleb climbed into his lap within 20 minutes and fell asleep there. My husband did not move for 2 hours. He sat perfectly still with a sleeping 4-year-old on him and looked at me like I had handed him something he had been looking for. We got married when Caleb was 6. My husband legally adopted him 6 months after the wedding. Caleb started calling him Dad on his own, unprompted, one morning over breakfast, and my husband had to leave the table to pull himself together. I want you to understand that. I want you to hold that before I tell you what comes next. My husband's family is close-knit in the way that some families are close-knit, meaning they spend a lot of time together and call it love without always examining what is underneath it. His mother is the kind of woman who sends birthday cards to every niece and nephew with a check tucked inside. His father is quiet, steady, the type who fixes things around the house without being asked. His sister lives 40 minutes away and comes over for dinner most Sunday evenings. On the surface, it looked warm. It looked like the kind of family I had wanted Caleb to have. The first sign was so small I almost dismissed it. It was Caleb's first Christmas with my husband's family. He was 6. His grandmother, my mother-in-law, had put out stockings on the mantel for every grandchild. There were 4 of them. I counted on the way in because I was nervous, and counting things helps me feel calm. 4 stockings. 3 belonged to my sister-in-law's kids. 1 had my husband's name on it from when he was a child. There was no stocking for Caleb. I told myself she had forgotten. It was the first year. There was so much going on. I didn't say anything. I went to a CVS the next morning and bought a stocking and filled it myself and hung it next to the others and acted like it had been there all along. My mother-in-law looked at it but did not say anything either. I should have said something then. I know that now. I knew it then too, and I chose silence, and that choice cost my son more than I want to calculate. The second sign came at Easter. The kids were doing an egg hunt in the backyard. My mother-in-law pulled Caleb aside and told him, very gently, very quietly, that he should let the other children go first, because they were guests. Caleb was also a guest. He was 6 years old. He came to me afterward and asked why he had to wait. I did not have an answer that would not hurt him, so I said nothing and found him 3 extra eggs in the bushes when no one was looking. That night, after Caleb was asleep, I brought it up with my husband. He listened. He agreed it was strange. He said he would talk to her. I do not know if he ever did. The next Easter, the same thing happened, phrased slightly differently. Here is what I want you to understand about those early years. I was not passive. I was strategic in a way that felt reasonable at the time, and now, looking back, just feels like I was protecting everyone's feelings except Caleb's. I was buying stockings. I was finding extra eggs. I was smoothing things over at the dinner table when a comment landed wrong. I was pulling my mother-in-law aside and having careful, measured conversations that always ended with her saying she loved Caleb very much, and me nodding and going home still uneasy. What I was not doing was drawing a clear line and standing behind it. That is the thing I have to live with. And I do live with it. Every day. The comments were never loud. That is the thing that made them so hard to address directly. Nobody ever said anything explicitly cruel. My mother-in-law never looked at Caleb and said, "You don't belong here." What she did was smaller than that, and somehow more corrosive. She called him a good boy with a slight pause before the word good, like she was grading him on a rubric. She bought his cousins larger birthday gifts, not dramatically so, just consistently, a little bit. Year after year enough that Caleb noticed by the time he was 8 and came to me quietly one night and said, "Mom, I think Grandma likes them more than me." I told him that was not true. I sat with the wrongness of that lie in my chest for a long time. My sister-in-law was more direct, in the way that people who consider themselves straightforward often are, which is to say she said unkind things with the confidence of someone who believes they are simply stating facts. She told my husband once, while I was in the next room, and she did not know I could hear, that it was sweet that we had taken Caleb on but that he would probably always feel the difference, that he would always know he was not quite family, that children sense these things. I stood very still in the kitchen and listened and did not go in there. I did not know what I would have said. I think some part of me was afraid that if I opened my mouth, something would come out of it that could not be taken back, and I was not ready for that yet. I was not ready for a long time. The clearest sign of how deep this went came at a family reunion the summer Caleb turned 9. My husband's extended family rented a lake house for a long weekend. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole landscape of the family tree. Caleb was excited for weeks. He packed his own bag, which he had never done before, and included a list he had written himself of all the things he wanted to do: swim, kayak, catch fireflies, play cards with Grandpa. On Saturday afternoon, someone decided to do a formal family photograph. A cousin who did photography professionally had brought her camera. She set up a spot near the dock, the lake glittering behind it, and started organizing everyone. Caleb was standing with his cousins, his arm around the youngest one because they had been playing together all morning and he was comfortable, and my mother-in-law stepped forward and said, in her particular pleasant voice, "Let's do blood family first and then we can do a big group one." Blood family. She said it like it was a scheduling note, like it was the most neutral possible phrase. Caleb's arm dropped from around his cousin's shoulder. He looked at me. He was 9 years old, and he was standing at the edge of a group of people who had just been sorted into a category that did not include him, and he was looking at me with an expression I will never stop seeing. He did not cry. He did not say anything. He just looked at me, and then he looked at the dock, and then he walked over and sat on the dock by himself and looked at the water. I stood there for 3 seconds. I counted them. 1, 2, 3. And then I walked over to my mother-in-law and I said quietly, so no one else could hear, "If Caleb is not in this photo, then neither am I, and neither is my husband, and we will be leaving in the morning." And I said it in the same pleasant voice she had used, and I smiled when I said it, and I meant every word. She looked startled, then she composed herself. Then she said, of course, I just meant," and I said, "I know what you meant." And I walked over to the dock and I sat down next to my son and I said, "You are in this photo, and you are in every photo, and if anyone has a problem with that, they can talk to me about it." Caleb leaned his head against my arm. He said, "Okay." He said it in a very small voice, and it broke my heart, and I held it together until much later. We were in the photograph. My mother-in-law arranged us all with her big smile and her commentary about good lighting. My husband stood with his hand on Caleb's shoulder. In the finished photo, Caleb is smiling. If you did not know what had happened 20 minutes earlier, you would think everything was fine. I knew what had happened 20 minutes earlier. That night, after Caleb was in bed, I stood at the window of the lake house bedroom, and I asked myself a question I had been avoiding for 3 years. How long are you going to keep managing this situation instead of changing it? Because here is what I had been doing. I had been the person who organized every family holiday gathering, not because anyone asked me to. It had just become mine, the way things do when you are a woman in a family, and you are good at logistics and you say yes once and then yes again, and then suddenly it is assumed. I planned my mother-in-law's last 3 birthday dinners. I found the venue for my sister-in-law's baby shower and coordinated the RSVPs. I was the one who tracked everyone's dietary restrictions and food allergies for Thanksgiving. I spent 4 hours every December making a holiday schedule so that family events did not overlap. I did all of this without being asked, and I did it well, and the family had come to rely on it the way you rely on infrastructure. You never think about it until it stops working. Here's what I decided. Standing at that window, I was going to stop being infrastructure, not dramatically, not with an announcement, not in a way that gave anyone the opportunity to perform hurt feelings or misunderstand my message. I was simply going to stop. The following November, when I would normally begin emailing everyone about Thanksgiving logistics, I did not send any emails. I waited to see if someone else would. No one did. By mid-October, my mother-in-law called me to ask if I had started planning. I said pleasantly that I had a lot going on this year and would not be able to take the lead on it. There was a pause. She said, of course, and we hung up, and I waited. Thanksgiving that year was held at my sister-in-law's house, and by all accounts it was a bit disorganized. Someone brought 2 of the same dish. The timing was off. No one had made a seating chart. My mother-in-law mentioned twice, in a gentle voice, that things were usually so smooth. Wasn't it nice when things were smooth? I agreed that it was nice. December came, and I did not coordinate the holiday schedule. My husband's family double-booked 2 events and had to reschedule, which caused friction between my sister-in-law and her husband's family. My mother-in-law called me to see if I could help straighten it out. I said I was not sure I had the bandwidth right now. She said she understood. I could hear in her voice that she did not understand. I want to be clear about something. I was not doing this to punish anyone, or maybe I was, a little. But more than that, I was doing it because I needed the people in this family to understand something that I had not been able to communicate with words. I had been the one holding everything together. I had been making their lives easier for years, while they made my son's life smaller. I needed them to feel the weight of what I was doing in order to understand what it meant when I stopped. Caleb, meanwhile, was doing what 9-year-olds do when they are loved at home and weathering difficulty outside of it. He was building. He started drawing, not casually, but seriously, filling sketchbooks with careful work. He drew our neighborhood, our cat, his school friends. He drew my husband teaching him to ride a bike. He drew the 2 of us at the beach from a photo he found on my phone, and when he showed it to me, I recognized that we had different ways of processing the same love. His art teacher noticed and told me at a parent-teacher conference that Caleb had real instinct, that she had never had a student so young think so intentionally about composition and light. She asked if we had considered an after-school program. We enrolled him. He flourished in it the way some children flourish when they find the thing that is theirs. He showed his grandmother one of his drawings at a family dinner that spring. She said it was very nice. She turned back to her other grandchildren before he had finished explaining it. Caleb folded the drawing carefully and put it in his jacket pocket and did not show her another one. I saw it happen. I excused myself and went to the bathroom and stood with my hands on the sink for a while. What came after that was quieter than I expected. Endings usually are. There was no confrontation. There was no meeting where I said everything I had been holding. What happened was simpler, and, in some ways, harder. I recalibrated what I was willing to do, and I held to it, and over several months the family began to feel the shape of what had changed. My mother-in-law planned her own birthday dinner for the first time in 4 years. It was fine. It was smaller than the ones I had organized. She mentioned once, to my husband, that she wished things were like they used to be. My husband told her he didn't entirely understand what she meant. I had talked to him, finally, in the way I had not been able to before fully, without protecting anyone's feelings, including his. He listened for a long time. He asked questions. He did not defend his family. What he said, after a long silence, was, "I should have done more. I have been watching you manage something I should have been standing in front of." He was right. I told him that. We stayed up very late that night talking about all of it, and something that had been tightly coiled in me for years finally started to loosen. My sister-in-law called me in February, around 10 months after the lake house. She said she wanted to have coffee. I agreed. We met at a cafe near her neighborhood, and she was uncertain in a way I had not seen her be before, slightly off balance, like someone who has been reading a room wrong for a long time and has just started to suspect it. She said she felt like things had been different lately. She said she wasn't sure what had changed. She said she missed having me around as much. I looked at her over my coffee and I said, "Caleb missed being around your family. For a long time, he missed being included. He missed being treated like he belonged. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said she was sorry if he ever felt that way. I noticed the if. I let it sit there between us without filling it. I said, he didn't feel that way. He was treated that way. Those are different things. And I want things to be different going forward, because he is my son, and I am not willing to keep showing up in spaces where he is made to feel like less. She nodded slowly. She was not ready to take the full weight of it. I could see that. But she was closer than she had ever been. It was something. The real shift came gradually, the way these things do. My mother-in-law had a health scare, that spring, nothing serious, but the kind of thing that makes people reassess. She called me one evening, which she did not usually do, and she was quieter than normal, and at the end of the conversation she said, unprompted, I want Caleb to know I love him. I want to do better by him. I think I have not done well enough. I do not know what it costs a woman of her generation to say that. I think it costs a great deal. I told her that Caleb loved her too, and that it was not too late to build something real, and that I hoped she meant it because he deserved to have it mean something. She started calling him every Sunday after that. Not every week, she missed some, but most weeks, she called, and they talked for 10 or 15 minutes about whatever he was drawing. And she started asking questions, real questions, the way my husband had done years ago in a restaurant looking at photos of a child he had not met yet. It was not a full reversal. It was not everything, but it was more than we had ever had, and Caleb noticed it, and it mattered to him, and that meant it mattered to me. Last month, we went to my mother-in-law's house for a Sunday dinner. My sister-in-law was there with her kids. After dinner, she asked Caleb if he would show her his latest sketchbook. He looked at me first, just briefly, the way he still does sometimes when he is deciding whether something is safe. I nodded. He went and got the sketchbook and sat next to her on the couch, and went through it page by page, explaining each drawing. And she listened, and her kids crowded in to look, and for about 20 minutes it was exactly what it should have been from the start. I watched from the doorway and did not say anything. My husband came and stood beside me and put his hand at the small of my back, and we just watched. Caleb drew a picture of that dinner later, in his sketchbook. He showed it to me before he showed anyone else. In it, everyone is at the table together. The composition is careful, like his art teacher always says. The light source is warm. Everyone is the same size. He is not standing apart from anyone. I think about the photograph in our hallway, the one that is always crooked, the one from the beach summer where his smile uses his whole face. I have stopped straightening it every morning, not because I stopped noticing, but because I decided I did not need everything to be perfect to prove that we were okay. We are okay. We are more than okay. My son is 11 in March. He draws things that make his art teacher look at him differently than she looks at other students. He talks to his grandmother on Sundays. He calls my husband Dad, in a voice that has never once sounded uncertain. He does not wait at the edge of photographs anymore. He walks into the middle of them. I will not pretend the years before this did not happen. I will not tell you I handled everything right. I waited too long in some places. I said nothing when I should have said something, and I said the careful thing when I should have said the true thing, and my son paid parts of that price, and that is something I will carry. But I also want to tell you this. I did not wait 13 years. The morning after that lake house photograph, I made a decision, and I held to it, and things changed because I held to it. Here is what I learned. You can say the thing directly and be dismissed. You can say it carefully and be managed. Or you can stop doing the invisible work that holds everything together, and let people feel, in the silence where your effort used to be, exactly what you were worth to them. It is not the choice for everyone. It was the right choice for me. The photograph on the hallway wall is crooked again this morning. I am going to leave it. It is a good photograph. My son is in it. We are at the beach. He is 8 years old and his smile uses his whole face, and he has no idea, in that moment, that things are about to get harder before they get better. But here is what I know that he did not know then. He also had no idea how much better was going to be. He knows now. I made sure of it.